got a classic panfish fly for you this week. This is called the Bully Bluegill Spider. It's a very simple pattern. Chenille body, some rubber legs. There's some weight along the hook shank in the back to help this get down deep. This fly is an excellent fly, especially in the summertime when the fish are much deeper in the water than they are in the spring. However, you can tie this fly without any weight at all on the hook shank, and it's a very, very effective fly for when fish are in the shallows in the spring. The key to this fly is getting the rubber legs so that they are very long, longer than usual, and they stick out as perpendicular from the body as possible, which helps them come to life in the water. The weight on the hook shank for the Bully Bluegill Spider is positioned at the very end of the shank, and this causes the fly to sink in the water, tail end first. That keeps those rubber legs flowing behind it, but they're actually fluttering in the water as this fly sinks, and it just comes to life. So that's the Bully Bluegill Spider. We'll go ahead and get started. We'll begin the Bully Bluegill Spider by placing our hook in the vise. This is a Mustad 3906B in a size 10. It's a heavier wire hook, which I like because we want this fly to be getting down deeper in the water. I'll go ahead and debarb the hook. The first step is to put some lead wraps along the hook shank. I'm using a .015 lead wire. We're going to want to place 7 to 8 wraps of lead along the hook shank. And then we'll squeeze those together and we'll put them back at the very back end of the hook shank. That's where we want the weight of this fly to be. We'll then add an additional 4 to 5 wraps of lead on top of the lead wraps we already have on the fly, and this is just to add a little bit more weight as well as bulk up the fly just a little bit more. Remember, the weight for this fly is all in the back end, which helps this fly to sink butt end first, essentially. For thread, I'll be using a Uni-Thread 8.0 in a black. I'll attach my thread right behind the eye of the hook, and I'll run my thread down the hook shank, laying a base layer of thread in. It's not particularly necessary to have a real well-defined base layer of thread, but it does help sometimes for the body material to grip along the hook shank. When you get to the lead wraps, you don't want to continue wrapping as you will push the lead down the bend of the hook. You'll want to reach the thread around to the back side of the lead, kind of grabbing it and pulling it forward, and then you'll start wrapping the thread behind the lead wraps to form a thread dam, and then come up to the front of the lead wraps to build a thread dam up front as well as you'll be putting some thread wraps over all of the lead wraps on the hook shank. The thread dam does 2 things for us. First, it jams up the lead right where we want it along the hook shank, so as we're fishing it, it won't slide along the hook shank or it won't move. The second thing is it gives us a nice transition from the wider diameter of the lead wraps to the narrower diameter of the hook shank. When you're done wrapping the thread in, you'll want to have it down the end of the shank, even down the bend just a little bit. The body of the fly is made with a variegated chenille in a size medium. This is a dark olive and a yellow. You'll strip off some of the fluff off the end to expose the core fibers, and right at the end of the shank we'll tie in the core fibers of that chenille. Again, it isn't critical that you have all of that wrapped in and make it nice and smooth and neat, as the chenille will cover all of it up. With that wrapped in, you're going to advance your thread forward on the hook shank all the way up to behind the eye of the hook. Sometimes the chenille, when you take it off the cards, will be kind of flat. The fibers get squished down flat. So you may have to take the chenille and twist it just a little bit. I generally will give it a clockwise twist and run your scissors along the top and the bottom. This simply breaks up those fibers a little bit from being so flat, so that when you're wrapping this on the hook shank, you have a nice, round, smooth body. You don't have any gaps, you don't have any flat spots. When you get to just behind the eye of the hook, you want to take your thread and tie in the chenille, and then we can trim away the waste. Be careful not to crowd the eye of the hook, but at the same time, you don't want to be too far away from the eye of the hook, otherwise the head of this fly will get a little bit bigger than it needs to be. Clean up some of the area behind the eye of the hook to maybe about a half an eye length behind. And now we'll tie in our rubber legs. The rubber legs that I'm using on this fly are a round rubber legs. These are black and a size medium. I've already measured these to about 2 inches in length. We're going to strip off 2 of these rubber legs and tie them into the fly. So I want to even the tips up, find the midpoint of the rubber legs and place it right on top of the fly with the midpoint right over where the thread is hanging. Using a pinch wrap, I'll secure those just behind the eye of the hook right on top of the hook shank. Notice that I'm wrapping backwards away from the eye of the hook. I'm going to keep wrapping back a little bit. What I'm wanting to do is jam the rubber legs up against the chenille body, and this is going to help those rubber legs, instead of flowing back at a more horizontal angle, they're going to stick up more perpendicular, which is the final effect that I'm looking for with these legs. Once you have those wrapped in, then you're going to take each of the other legs sticking out front and you're going to fold them back along the side, actually stretch those out a little bit to thin the rubber, and you'll wrap those in right along the sides of the head of the fly so that they are sticking out perpendicular. Again, I'm wrapping still backwards towards the body. This is going to force all the rubber legs to be sticking out more perpendicular. If for some reason you get a leg that doesn't want to cooperate initially, just go ahead and unwrap and just start over again. Take your time with it. It's a quick, easy fly to tie, and it's not super critical that everything be just perfect. But at the same time, if you're unhappy with it, then just undo it and do it over again. So we get those legs sticking out a little more perpendicular, and then we can go ahead and cover up all of the rubber legs and everything behind the eye of the hook to make the head of the fly. Again, you want to try and keep the head from getting too large. Once you have the head completed, you'll put in a 4 or 5 turn whip finish. and then you can trim away the thread. I like to have the rubber legs sticking out as perpendicular as I can get them. I don't want them sloping and flowing in a rearward direction. Some flies, this works out a little bit better than others in terms of having them more perpendicular. But what this does do is that it keeps the legs very long and away from the body, and they just come alive under the water. Every little microcurrent is going to be moving those legs around. Little head cement on those thread wraps, and our Bully Bluegill Spider is done. Remember, this fly will be sinking butt first, the bend of the hook first, however you want to term it. So it'll be sinking down with those rubber legs up. So as they're sinking, those long rubber legs that are sticking way out from the body are going to just flow and move all in the water. Often the Bully Bluegill Spider is tied in a yellow color, an olive color, even a black color. You can tie this without any weight, but the primary purpose is to have a heavier fly that will get down deeper to the fish, especially during the hotter months. Having that weight is what's going to be needed. But you can experiment with these, tie them with different chenille, different rubber legs, maybe even silicone legs. Have some fun with it. That's the Bully Bluegill Spider. Thanks for joining me at Devise today. I hope you learned at least a new pattern, if not a new technique, maybe a tip or trick here and there. If you have any questions about this fly or any of the techniques used in constructing this pattern, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you go to the trouble to ask a question, I'll go to the trouble to answer it. If you'd like to help dressed irons, please share this video with your friends and anybody you think that might enjoy this pattern. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong.